music superstar Taylor Swift has launched her second Eras Tour concert in Sydney. A fan caused a commotion by shouting, "We miss Travis," during the concert. It made Taylor hesitate a bit on stage and look towards the young girl who had just screamed, but the star continued her performance as if nothing had happened. Taylor Swift will continue her journey in Australia without her boyfriend by her side. The NFL star is on his way back to the US after a short trip in Sydney to cheer on his girlfriend Taylor Swift. NATFL can confirm Travis is currently on a private plane en route to Las Vegas to meet Patrick Mahomes and his Kansas City Chiefs teammates, sources told NATFL, who first reported the news. That the latest game in Vegas had no specific purpose but that the team was still celebrating its Super Bowl when earlier this month, Kelce arrived in Australia on Thursday morning local time to support his fiancée at an Eras Tour show. At his first concert in Sydney on Friday, the NFL star entered the stadium in good spirits, with Swifties high-fiving at his presence. His wrists were full of friendship bracelets, an apparent homage to the "Lover" singer, that were on display at the time. Kelce then relaxed at the VIP tent with other celebrities, including Rita Ora, who asked the football player for a quick photo, and Katy Perry, the Dark Horse singer, at one point, was seen singing "Bad Blood," which the 14-time Grammy winner reportedly wrote about her amid their rift. However, the two quashed the rumors years ago and Perry even gave Kelce the okay to date Swift last year. "I ship," the fireworks singer wrote via Instagram in response to an October 2023 photo of the couple. The good vibes at Friday's concert continued as Swift once again changed the lyrics to "Karma" to pay tribute to Kelce, singing, "Karma is the guy on the Chiefs, coming straight home to me." She also pointed out at the catching Kelsey alum during her song "Willow" when she sang, "That's my man." Kelce, who has been dating Swift since last summer, waited for his lady after her performance and they shared a sweet kiss as fans cheered. Swift and Kelce then returned to her presidential suite at the five-star Crown Sydney Hotel for the night. Despite the quick turnaround, it seems like he's enjoyed his time in Australia, as he and Swift had a fun day at the Sydney Zoo on Thursday, where they fed wildlife and held hands together. However, due to different schedules, Kelce will be temporarily absent from Sydney for the remaining shows of the Eras Tour. But according to NATFL's exclusive source, Travis Kelce is most likely to fly directly to Singapore after the Chiefs event ends. Because Taylor Swift will fly to Singapore right after saying goodbye to Sydney to continue the international leg of her Eras Tour. To journey through 18 years of Taylor Swift's discography in 3.5 hours is to take a whirlwind trip down memory lane that leaves your heart pounding, especially when you throw in the threat of impending rain. After watching Taylor Swift sell out and shake up stadiums across the US, Japan and, most recently, Melbourne, it's been a very long time coming for Sydney fans who haven't been graced by her presence since 2018. Friday night's show at Accor Stadium in Olympic Park got off to a less than ideal start, through no fault of Swift's. Storm warnings, humidity, and high temperatures had filled the city with an even greater sense of anticipation than the pop megastar's presence. Just after 5:30 p.m., an hour before opening act Sabrina Carpenter was due to take to the stage, heavy rain and lightning strikes forced Swifties to evacuate from the stadium floor and take shelter in the indoor concourse. Thankfully, the rain didn't last long and crowds were respectful, well-behaved and seated just over an hour later. Unfortunately for Carpenter, her set was axed to help things stick to time in a show that famously runs like clockwork, though she did later grace the stage to perform a secret duet with Swift. Swift's entrance, only 15 minutes after her scheduled time, from within big, billowing, sunset-colored petals on Friday, could have marked the opening of her abandoned Lover Fest tour, which was cancelled when the pandemic hit in 2020. Instead, she used it as the opener to her Marathon Eras Tour. After telling Melbourne fans they were the love of her life, Swift had a tricky task of making the 81,000 people gathered in the Harbour City feel as appreciated. But, as usual, she had a way with words. "Here we are in one of the most exciting cities in the world on a Friday night," she said, to an adoring crowd. "We might have a bit of a weather situation, with a bit of rain, but I've never seen an Aussie crowd let anything get in the way of having a good time. Sydney, you're making me feel absolutely phenomenal right now. Swift's more recent eras got the most airtime, except for 2012's Red, which features crowd favorites like 22 and I Knew You Were Trouble, capped off with a rendition of the now beloved 10-minute version of All Too Well. In what has become a ritual for the tour, Swift handed the microphone to a dancer during We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, who responded with a local twist on the spoken lyric like ever, opting for a cheeky yeah, nah, with a sparkle in her eye and some cheeky glances. She made the audience feel like they were in on a joke, bringing the crowd on an intimate yet expansive journey with her. In The Archer, Swift pointed to the crowd and sang You Could Stay, to a roar of cheers. Whether feigned or genuine, Swift's apparent humility and shocked reactions to the cheers is endearing. Swift's pandemic album Evermore was the one album I never got into because of its slower pace and ghostly, wistful tone. But seeing it brought to life through a black-and-white theatrical performance in Tolerated and on a piano for Champagne Problems, Swift underscored a depth to the songs I had failed to recognize. As usual, she was right and I was wrong. If there was any point at which concertgoers took a seat, it was during these more reflective, downbeat eras. Folklore, which similarly softened the cadence of the concert, saw some Swifties attempt a speedy getaway to the bathroom. But catchy tunes like Betty foiled those plans for many. The pacing of the show also ensured there was enough time to simmer in the sadness of serious songs and surreal visual narratives before being jolted into the more aggressive electropop hits of 2017's Reputation. During Blank Space, in the 1989 era, fans collectively joined in on the viral Sydney chant popularized during Swift's tour of that album back in 2015. Swift later said she noticed the chant and that she had hoped the audience would do it. During every show on this tour, Swift plays an acoustic set featuring two surprise songs. The first was How You Get the Girl, from 1989, which she played on guitar. The second was something very special that few cities get to experience, a surprise duet. When Swift sat down at the piano, she announced that she was inviting someone out with her, who had been cruelly impacted by the weather, Sabrina Carpenter. One of the times we were at the zoo, we really loved the Sydney Zoo. Sabrina mentioned to me there was a song that was really important to you as a kid, Swift said, referring to White Horse. The two performed a mashup of White Horse and Coney Island. It was an elegant move from Swift to shout out her hard-working opener, and one that made Sydney feel very, very special. Swift didn't spend as much time as in some of her previous tours trying to connect with the audience through divulging backstories and personal anecdotes, unsurprising for a show with a 44-song set list. However, the sheer scale of the concert and the production, from choreography to immersive projections and costume changes, made it just as entrancing. Longtime Swifties with a soft spot for her classics may have been left craving more, with only a handful of songs from some of her earliest albums, Fearless, 2008, and Speak Now, 2010. But the reception to hits that did make it onto the list, including Love Story and Long Live, was reflected in real time when Swift sang. The crowds in the stands went wild. Swift left some of her best ideas for the end of the show. Midnights, her most recent work, was a goldmine for visual effects, a chessboard projected onto the stage with moving pieces depicted by dancers, and a giant projection of Swift knocking over skyscrapers and seeming to interact with the real, live, Swift during Anti-Hero, shaking off her good girl image in vigilante shit. Swift stunned the audience with a bold, sensual performance to the delight of fans, at least those unaccompanied by parents. Swift has previously discussed the dead day she takes after each run of concerts, 24 hours in which she rests and recovers, largely by staying in bed. For Swifties who have made the trek to see her and spent hours standing, belting and dancing at the Eras tour, a dead day may be on cards for them, too. Well worth it, though, opening her final segment with giant, glowing storm clouds carted onto stage during moody tune Lavender Haze. Swift ends with triumphant anthems including Mastermind and Karma, where she changes the lyrics to Karma is the guy on the Chiefs in reference to her boyfriend Travis Kelce, who attended that night. The Eras tour is so tightly choreographed, and such a well-oiled machine, that it's perhaps not surprising at this stage to hear how extraordinary a live show it actually is. But the fact that Swift can deliver it so regularly, in so many different environments. In different conditions, to different audiences, and still make all of us feel like it was made just for us is the real testament to her, in this era at least, unmatched artistry.